Deputy Mark Hanson seemed like a trusted lawman, but behind the badge, he was orchestrating a terrifying web of lies. What started as routine investigations quickly turned into a chilling obsession as he faked cases to watch, manipulate, and control unsuspecting residents. This is the story of how a protector became a predator, and how one town uncovered the shocking truth hiding in plain sight. In a quiet suburban town, the streets were lined with neat lawns, children rode bikes along the sidewalks, and neighbors exchanged greetings over white picket fences. Life seemed ordinary, predictable, and safe, the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business. The sheriff's office was a respected institution, a symbol of security and trust. Residents believed the deputies were there to protect them, to intervene in emergencies, and to uphold the law without bias. But beneath the calm exterior of this small community, one deputy was nurturing a secret obsession. Unlike his colleagues, he didn't see his role as simply maintaining order. He wanted control, influence, and a way to insert himself into the lives of those he found interesting, those he deemed worth watching. His desire was not for justice, but for proximity, an unsettling mix of curiosity and manipulation that would soon put the town at risk. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Minor complaints and small incidents became opportunities for him to insert himself into situations that did not require his attention. A missing package, a noise complaint, or even a routine traffic stop provided an excuse to observe, collect information, and establish presence. At first, residents noticed nothing. There was nothing illegal, at least on the surface, and his actions seemed like thorough policing. But patterns began to emerge. Certain individuals received visits more frequently than others, and questions were asked that had no apparent connection to a reported crime. Neighbors whispered about his odd timing and the way he seemed unusually interested in specific households. Some dismissed it as coincidence or the zealous nature of a dedicated deputy. But for those being watched, unease began to creep in. The deputy documented every encounter with meticulous care. Every visit, every observation, every detail about routines and habits was carefully recorded. This wasn't just professional diligence, it was the foundation of a deeper, more disturbing plan. He wanted knowledge, access, and ultimately influence. By creating the illusion of investigation, he could justify being everywhere, seeing everything, and quietly shaping the lives of his targets without their awareness. As the town continued its routine, unaware of the predator in uniform, the deputy's obsession quietly expanded, setting the stage for a series of events that would eventually expose a chilling abuse of power. The ordinary, peaceful town was about to discover that safety and authority could be weaponized in ways no one could have imagined. The deputy began selecting his targets with careful precision. He watched the residents he found intriguing, observing their routines, habits, and vulnerabilities. Some were new to town, unaware of its hidden patterns. Others were longtime residents, quietly struggling with personal problems. Each target became a puzzle piece in his growing web of control. He fabricated investigations, claiming to follow up on complaints that didn't exist. A report of stolen mail, a missing pet, or a suspicious visitor provided the perfect pretext for him to appear at their door. The victims, unaware of the deception, believed the deputy was acting in their best interest. Each encounter, each inquiry, made them think they were under the care of law enforcement, when in reality, they were being monitored. At first, the intrusions were subtle. He asked questions that seemed routine, checked on small details in their lives, and made seemingly innocent observations about schedules, purchases, and habits. But gradually, the visits became more frequent and invasive. The residents felt a strange sense of being watched, though they couldn't prove it. Any attempt to voice their discomfort was dismissed as paranoia or overreaction. Even neighbors who noticed patterns were told there was nothing unusual, reinforcing the illusion of normalcy. The deputy's ability to manipulate perception was extraordinary. He balanced professionalism with obsession, ensuring no one suspected his true motives. His influence extended beyond observation. He began giving subtle guidance, making suggestions that affected decisions in the lives of his targets. He would steer them towards certain choices, advise on personal matters, and insert himself as a source of authority and trust. The townspeople began relying on his opinions, unaware that each recommendation furthered his sense of control. By maintaining the guise of an investigator, he could shape behavior without detection. All the while, the deputy maintained meticulous records, creating reports that seemed legitimate and verifiable. Every staged investigation was carefully documented to appear as official police work. Outside observers, even other law enforcement agencies, saw nothing suspicious on paper. His network of deception expanded, feeding his obsession with influence and control. While the town continued its routines, oblivious to the growing threat, the deputy's plan gained momentum, and the line between protector and predator blurred. With every visit, every fabricated report, and every manipulated interaction, he tightened his grip on the lives of those around him, setting the stage for the terrifying unraveling that would shock the community. As the deputy's manipulations continued, subtle cracks began to appear in his carefully constructed facade. On paper, his investigations seemed thorough and professional, but inconsistencies started surfacing: files that didn't match outcomes, missing reports, and details that conflicted with other accounts. To outsiders, the discrepancies were minor, easily dismissed as clerical errors or the result of a busy office. But to those who were paying close attention, a pattern of deception began to emerge. One resident, quietly uneasy after repeated visits and unusual questioning, started keeping her own notes. She tracked dates, times, and details that seemed irrelevant at first, but gradually formed a disturbing picture of deliberate intrusion. Her observations revealed that the deputy's presence was no coincidence. Certain residents were being watched more closely than others, and incidents that seemed isolated were part of a larger, orchestrated plan. The realization was chilling. The investigations weren't about solving crimes at all. They were a tool for him to observe, manipulate, and control. Every report filed, every inquiry made, served a purpose beyond law enforcement. It was a map of people's lives, their habits, relationships, and vulnerabilities, all cataloged for his own obsessive interest. Even law enforcement colleagues began noticing anomalies. Routine checks of case files uncovered gaps and discrepancies that could no longer be ignored. Complaints that should have been investigated were missing, while reports of minor incidents were meticulously documented. The truth, once hidden beneath layers of false documentation, was beginning to surface. But the full extent of the deputy's misconduct remained difficult to grasp. His ability to appear professional and dedicated allowed him to evade suspicion for months, even as he crossed boundaries that could have endangered lives. The tension in the town grew quietly, unnoticed by many. Some residents felt an intangible unease, sensing someone was always watching or subtly influencing their decisions. Others dismissed it, unable to articulate the creeping fear that seemed to follow them. But for those who were paying attention, the pattern was undeniable. The deputy's obsession had moved beyond casual interest. It had become a methodical campaign of control. Each visit, each fabricated case, each subtle manipulation was a calculated step in a plan that had been in motion long before anyone realized the danger. The town was on the edge of discovery, and once the hidden truth came to light, the repercussions would shake the community to its core, exposing how far someone could abuse trust while hiding behind a badge. The town, a sense of security began to crumble as the first undeniable evidence of the deputy's actions surfaced. Hidden messages, manipulated records, and discrepancies that had once seemed minor now painted a clear, disturbing picture. The fabricated investigations were no longer secret, and the depth of his obsession became undeniable. Residents who had once trusted him felt betrayed, realizing that every visit, every question, and every suggestion had been part of a calculated campaign to monitor and influence their lives. The friendly, authoritative figure they had known was, in reality, a predator exploiting the trust placed in him. As investigators pieced together the truth, the town's shock grew. The deputy's obsession had escalated beyond mere intrusion. He had engineered situations to maintain access to his targets, carefully avoiding legal repercussions while maximizing his influence. Some residents discovered that their personal information had been cataloged, their routines mapped, and their vulnerabilities exploited. Even neighbors who had shrugged off odd encounters began to understand that what they had dismissed as coincidence or dedication was, in fact, manipulation and control. The violation of trust was profound. Colleagues in the sheriff's office struggled to comprehend the scope of his actions. Many had worked alongside him for years, viewing him as diligent and reliable. The revelation that he had weaponized his authority to stalk, manipulate, and control those he was sworn to protect was shocking. Internal reviews uncovered dozens of fabricated case files, each carefully crafted to appear legitimate, each masking the true purpose of his investigations. The town's law enforcement, once a symbol of safety, now faced scrutiny and doubt from the very community they were meant to serve. As the full extent of the deputies' misconduct became public, the atmosphere in the town shifted. Residents moved cautiously, uncertain who could be trusted, even within their own homes. The psychological impact was significant. The knowledge that someone had been watching, influencing, and cataloging their lives created fear and mistrust that lingered long after the deputy's exposure. The story of his deception spread, serving as a chilling example of how power could be misused in subtle, insidious ways. The town, once confident in its safety and order, now faced the difficult task of rebuilding trust while processing the reality that a trusted figure had hidden a dark obsession behind the veneer of law enforcement. The aftermath of the deputy's exposure left the town in shock, struggling to come to terms with the betrayal. Legal proceedings revealed the full extent of his manipulation and deception. Every fabricated investigation, every staged incident, and every subtle intrusion into private lives was laid bare in court. The evidence was overwhelming: altered files, hidden notes, and detailed records that mapped the lives of those he had targeted. For the residents, the reality was horrifying. The person they had trusted to protect them had not only violated that trust, but had done so with meticulous calculation and obsession. The judicial system moved swiftly. The deputy faced severe consequences, including criminal charges for abuse of power, stalking, and falsifying official documents. His career ended in disgrace, and he was removed from any position of authority. But while justice addressed the legal violations, the emotional and psychological impact on the victims lingered. Residents found themselves questioning their safety, their judgment, and even the nature of authority itself. Trust, once taken for granted, had to be rebuilt slowly and cautiously. The town realized that the consequences of his actions extended far beyond the courtroom. The ripple effects touched every corner of the community, leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche. Support networks emerged as residents sought to recover. Friends, neighbors, and local organizations provided guidance and reassurance, helping each other navigate the lingering fear and uncertainty. Public forums discussed warning signs, boundaries, and ways to safeguard against similar abuses in the future. The town began to recognize the subtle signs that had been ignored for too long: unusual attention, repeated visits, and manipulative guidance disguised as concern. These lessons became vital for preventing future abuses of authority and for understanding the depth of manipulation that could occur behind a uniform. Ultimately, the story of the deputy became a cautionary tale. It highlighted how obsession, unchecked, could twist power into a weapon and how a trusted figure could exploit authority for personal gratification. The town learned that vigilance, awareness, and critical observation were as important as trust in those sworn to protect them. While the wounds of betrayal would not heal overnight, the residents emerged more informed, cautious, and resilient. The quiet town had been forever changed, marked by the unsettling knowledge that safety and trust could be manipulated in ways that were frighteningly close to home. Yet, in the aftermath, the community found a measure of strength in understanding, vigilance, and the determination to protect one another.